Well, how's everybody? Okay, remember, I'm not the guy in charge here, so you can talk back when I talk to you. You don't have to be intimidated for anything. So, how's everyone doing? Great. We figured if it's going to be a chaotic morning, we're just going to top the chaos off with me being the speaker, right? So you are in for quite the treat this morning. But before we get into the message, I just want to highlight some of our kids real quick. You guys are doing an awesome job serving in all these different capacities. But over the course of October, we tried to challenge them a little bit. How many of you are familiar with BGMC? Okay, so if you are not, BGMC is Boys and Girls Missionary Challenge. Basically, again, a challenge to your kids, your sons and daughters, to get involved in helping the gospel go out to those that need it most. And so what BGMC does is it takes the money that comes in and gives missionaries the ministry materials that they need in the places that they are going to. So BGMC has bought cattle, it has bought, again, ministry curriculums, all these different things that missionaries need in their hands. BGMC helps to make sure it gets there. And so for October, we tried to challenge our kids with something a little different, a little cheesy, called Socktober. And we gave them these socks and said, hey, for the entire month, just fill them with as many coins as you can, and then we'll bring them in and put them all together at the end of the month. And I'm happy to report that just in October, they brought in $230, which is pretty cool, and they brought in over 32 pounds of coins. So it seems little, but you carry 30 pounds of socks, you can do some serious damage with that, right? And God will do some serious damage in the territories it needs to go as well. But with that, we had two girls that did a stellar job. They brought in nearly half of that amount just between the two of them. And so I want to take a minute to honor them. I don't think Olivia Hansen is here, but she was actually a visitor, and she had the heaviest sock and the most amount of money. She brought in $99 of her own. And then there is another one who I do know is here. So Layla Miller, can you go ahead and stand? You also brought in about $60 and had a 9-pound sock. So come on up. This t-shirt is for you as promised. We are so thankful for you and the example that you are setting in giving. Think about if you were to hand your kid essentially $60, right? They would probably go spend it for themselves. But Layla, you gave that so that the gospel could be spread to the kids that need it just as much as you do. And so thank you for that. I'm proud of you, and I'm excited to see how God continues to use you. Okay? All right. So now we're going to continue on to the message part. We're good? Comfortable? Everyone's got flannels on, so you're nice and cozy. We could be here for 6 hours because no one wants to go in the rain. We could feed you chili. Okay, anyway. How many of you have ever heard at any point in time in your life, again, especially kids, a parent or a guardian or a teacher telling you not to do something, and it only makes you want to do it more, right? How many of you have been there before? You have been told, hey, don't touch the stove, don't go and do this, and you're like, I just got to find out for myself. I see some really proud hands in the back. Thank you. Here's the thing. We see this everywhere, right? Movies, TV, it is the number one plot, I think, in any kids movie. And if you don't believe me, let's just name a few. Finding Nemo. How many of you are familiar with Finding Nemo? Okay, Nemo is given a simple instruction, hey, don't go and touch the boat, or the butt is what he calls it. This is kids service, so we can say these things. And so Nemo does not listen and decides to go out and try anyway. And what happens? Does anyone know? Yell it out. He gets captured and he's taken by divers, right? All right, let's move on. Still in the water, the Little Mermaid, Ariel. Her dad gives her instructions not this Ariel, wherever she is, but the other one. Given instructions to not go up into the surface, right? It is going to be bad news for her. Does she listen? Yes or no? No, right? And what ends up happening is she cuts the deal with Ursula and loses her voice. And Disney will try to play God and make all things work for good, right? But we know that was not the best decision. But best example of all, I think, Simba. How many of you are familiar with The Lion King? Okay, Simba is told, do not go near the elephant graveyard, whatever you do. And what do Simba and Nala do? They go to the elephant graveyard, right? And what happens? They're chased, They do end up getting rescued, but for those of you who have seen the movie, you know that it ends up coming at a great cost. I won't spoil it, but it plays a pretty big deal. Point being, it is natural for kids to rebel. It is natural for them to push the limits and to go against what the parents are trying to say. I know I can speak for myself. I was certainly like that. When I was growing up, we had this big mountain laurel, I think it's called, bush in our yard. My brothers and I, we called it the jungle, and we would go in there and play all the time. And there was one particular day, my dad being faithful to yard work, and he discovered there was a wasp nest on one of the branches inside our jungle. And so he said, hey, don't go in there today. You know, there's bees in there, you're gonna get stung. And we did not listen. And so my brother Noah climbs up on the branch, not realizing he's on the one with the nest, and shakes it. The nest falls to the floor, breaks open. We start getting swarmed by all these wasps. We're running, screaming through the yard, running for safety to our house, and they're just laughing at us. We wished we listened. I'm terrified of bees still to this day because that moment I hear the sound of a buzz and I will take off and leave the room because I have such bad memories of being stung multiple times by these bees. And again, we all, if we had time, could go through situations where we have been given wisdom, we have been given instruction, and yet something in us decided that we didn't want to listen to it. And looking back now, we wish that we did. And so today, as we are closing this home series, which has been great, I think, for us as a church, we are going to be wrapping up in the same way that Paul did. Because again, he's got the entire Ephesians church gathered together, and they are trying to learn how to live well, how to live in a way that pleases God, because God knows, and we know, we don't know how to do it on our own, right? How many of you have said that you have known how to make every decision you've ever had to make, right? We don't know how to do this well. And so Paul is giving this instruction and giving this direction, and he wraps up all the details on how to love each other, husbands and wives, how you are supposed to treat each other. He wraps it all together really nice in instructions to the entire family, because when you want to be a gospel-centered family, there is a role for everyone to play, including the kids. Kids have just as much of a vital role in being a gospel-centered family as the parents do. And so we're going to try to structure this as well as possible. I'm going to talk to the kids first, and then parents, I'll wrap up talking to you. Just, again, the same way that Paul does. Is that okay? We're going to try and get through it well. I know we have a lot. But let's just jump right into Ephesians 6:1. I'm going to try. All right, here we go. So, starting with verse 1, Ephesians chapter 6, Paul says, "Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord. For this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will have a long life on the earth." Now, as Pastor Sharon, you have a new name, sorry. Pastor Aaron shared already, we are going to be talking a little bit about honor. And as I was praying, as I was preparing, that is going to be the main focal point for the first half of the message, and then we're going to try and bring it home. But there are 3 things about honor that we need to understand. The first thing is that honor is connected to value. The second is that God calls us to honor our parents. And finally, number 3, by honoring our parents, we honor God. And so this first idea that honor is connected to value, when we honor something, that means that we are treating it according to the value and the worth that it has. To determine what something is worth, what value it has, we tend to use as a society like 3 certain rules. What is the cost of production? Like, what does it take to make it? Number 2 is the purchase price. What does it take to pay for it? And finally, the effort in obtaining. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give in order to get it? Those 3 criteria are what we tend to use when we are determining something's value. And so, again, family service, to bring some fun and life to this, hopefully, we're going to play a little game that I made up. called What's It Worth? And so if you are one of the kids that I asked, this is the time to come up to hold your sign. So Silas, Vivian, Violet, I think I got Desmond and Willow. Come on up. Is Josh in here? Josh, you come in? All right, sweet. So here's the deal. Vivian, I want you to come stand with me. And then Silas, can you pass these out to everybody? Parents, I am going to teach your kids, hopefully, something about the value of the things that they don't really think about. Okay, that's what we're going to try and do today. So you guys come up and line in the front. Desmond, come over here. And then Silas follows suit. Violet, Josh, Willow, say hello to our participants today. All right, and show everybody what your sign says. And do me a favor and stand here. Violet, come on down. Can everybody see? This is the tricky part. I'm going to read you what are on these signs for those of you in the back or don't have your readers. So this one is 1 month of your electric bill. This is a month of gas. Violet, which one do you got here? You got 1 month of groceries. Silas has a new Nintendo Switch, and Desmond is holding 4 one-day passes to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Okay? Now, Violet, here's the game for you. Vivian, all the V's. I want you to put these in order of what you think their value is. I want you to put the least valuable thing over there, and I want you to put the most valuable thing over here. So feel free to move everybody around. I want you to try to put them in order yourself first. What do you think is the most valuable? Do you think the electric bill costs more than a month of groceries? No? Go ahead and move everybody the way that you want them to be moved. Okay, gas is not that much. She's moving electric up. Groceries, somewhere in the middle, we think. Desmond, hold yours out. Oh, you're moving. All right. How you feel? You want to pause there? Vivian, you good? All right, so parents, I'm going to read you her choices, and I'm going to give you like 10 seconds to just yell out if you think she needs to make any adjustments, okay? So least value, we've got 1 month of gas. Then we have 1 month for your electric bill. In the middle, we had the 4 one-day passes for Disney's Animal Kingdom. Then we've got a month of groceries, and most valuable, clearly, is the new Nintendo DS, or Switch. So, all right, Vivian, here's what we're going to do. As I said, I'm going to give them 10 seconds. It's your job to try and listen to whatever instructions they're giving you on how to determine the real value of these things. Are you ready? All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Help her out. Switch what? Or do you want to, let's just try this. Should we grab your dad? You think your dad can help you? All right, where's Josh? Come on up, Mr. Josh. All right, help her. Your dad's a smart man. He knows. Let's try to figure out the real value of these things. Cost, yep, so least to most. And this is all based off of 2023 Pennsylvania state averages, okay? I know some of you have different trucks or different family sizes, but this is all off a family of 4. A family of 4. Who's president? I don't want to answer that one. You like this one? Okay, so you've got a new Nintendo Switch being the minimum, then your electric bill, then a month of gas, then passes to Animal Kingdom, and then the month of groceries. And I'm happy to report you got almost all of them correct, except based off Pennsylvania averages, the Nintendo Switch is $275, so that is actually above the average gas. So Josh, you were pretty close. Violet, did it help to have your dad's wisdom in determining the value of these things? Yes, a little bit. All right, you guys can go ahead to your seats. You can take the papers with you. And so you didn't know it cost that much? Now you do. Things to learn, right? All right, so we've had a little practice placing value on these material things, but now, again, we're here for church. How do we go about placing value on people because people are different. We can't just look at someone, or we shouldn't be able to just look at someone and be like, not much, sorry. We shouldn't be able, right, to look at someone based off of just the appearance or based off the words they say. We have to look at what the Bible says about determining people's worth. And I promise this is going to tie into parents in just a second. But the first thing, going off that same model, how were people made? Genesis 1, 26 and 27, as we are all familiar with, I hope, we know that people were made in the image of God. How many of you, anyone in this room, has ever heard someone say, man, you look just like your dad? Or you sound just like your mom on the phone. You have got that same really weird laugh that they do, right? These are traits that are carried on from parent to children. That is part of being their child. In the same way, we were created in the image of God. We are his children. We were made to reflect him and his character. We know this, but sometimes we forget because we're not perfect, right? We all mess up. That is part of living in a fallen world. We all still struggle with our sin nature, but we have to remember that people, every single person that you come across, no matter how great or imperfect they are, they have value because they were made in the image of God. We are called to remember not what they've done or what they haven't done, but who they are and who they belong to. They are valuable because they were made in the image of God. We also know God says that people have value because he has purchased us. We can tell how much by 1 Peter, right, 1, 18 and 19. If we can go to that verse. It says, for you know that God paid a ransom to save you from the empty life that you inherited from your ancestors. And it was not paid with mere gold or silver, which lose their value, but it was the precious blood of Christ, the sinless, spotless Lamb of God. And that ties right into the effort, what he was willing to do to obtain that thing. God sent his only son. If you don't know this, this is the most important thing you can get from today. God sent his only son to this earth to live a perfect life in a way that we never could, so that he could lay his life down for you, and that you could then believe in him, put your faith in him, and have forgiveness and reconciliation with God because of what his son did. If Jesus, who is the King of glory, the King of heaven and earth, he is the Alpha and the Omega, right? If he was willing to lay his life down for you, not knowing, I mean, he would know, but giving you the option to take it or to not, how much more valuable can you possibly get? If the King of heaven was willing to lay himself down just to have a chance to have a relationship with you again. We have more value than we like to put on people, but we have to remember what God says, the value that he says each of us have. But all of that is just people in general. What then makes parents different? Again, we're wrapping up this series. What makes honoring your parents different? And our last little fun element, I think, for this moment, we have some awesome parents in the room. I want to take a second just to thank you. You're here. You got your kids dressed. You came in the rain. You're sitting in these seats now, all nice and cozy together. Thank you for allowing us to invest in your kids. It means more to us than we could put into words. And you deserve all the thanks in the world. And we gave your kids a heads up that we were going to be honoring you for just a brief moment. And so now I'm going to put you on the spot. And we're just going to read a few thank you notes that I have that were written by yours truly. Sound good? Okay. Are we alive? Okay. We'll get there. So the first is for the Strites. Braxton says, thank you, Mom and Dad, for feeding me and that you were at all of my special events. Thank you for that. Where are the Bryans? Are they in the room anywhere? We've got 2 notes from Frankie and Knox. Frankie says, thank you for being nice to me and so patient. And as I try to get clarification before, Knox said, thank you for giving me popcorn even though you burn it. So wherever you are, thank you for the burnt popcorn. It is better than nothing. Next up, Where are Tiff and Jonathan Miller? Layla just wants you to know, thank you for all that you do. I love it when you cuddle with me. You are the best parents ever. You've got a sweet girl. She is awesome. What about the Robinsons? Rachel, River says, thank you for putting on my socks, Mommy. It really means the world that you put his socks on him. We know that fuzzy socks are a gift from the Lord. We also have the Mensers. You are right here front and center. Primley just wants you to know, thank you, Mom, for giving us gifts for our birthday, and thank you, Dad, for working for money. We love it, and we need it. These are two of my favorite ones. That's why I saved them for last. Where are the Zents? Steve, I know you're in the back. Okay, Nadia, I'm going to blow up your spot a little bit, but this one was too funny to not share. She says, thank you, Mom, that you make dinner. Thank you for taking care of me because sometimes I am a rat. I don't know the story behind that or what that means, but thank you, even though your daughter is a rat. Her words, not mine. Okay, so last one. Where are the Dixons? Sean, Matthew Dixon. Okay, your son has a sense of humor. He wrote a joke first before he gave his thanks. And so, real quick, why did the granny put wheels on her rocking chair? Does anybody know why Granny put wheels on her rocking chair? Sean, do you want to yell it out, or are you good? Because she wanted to rock and roll. And with that, he says, thank you for rocking and rolling, Mommy and Daddy. So, we love it. You guys have awesome kids. Again, thank you for allowing us to invest in them. And so many things to be thankful for. Not one of those cards was the same. And kids, I want you to understand why that is. If you leave here with nothing else, remember this one thing. Your parents have value because they were made in the image of God. Your parents have value because he bought them at the greatest cost of giving his son. But they also have value specifically to you because they were handpicked by God for you. Your parents were set apart before you were even formed to be your mom and to be your dad. David talks about it in Psalm 139 where he's like, God, you knew me before I was even formed in my mother's womb. Before David even knew what was going on, he understood that before anything else, like his mom was picked for him. God had it all planned out. It is not an accident that you were born into the family that you were, whether that's a great one or some that has more struggles than others. God has a specific purpose and a reason for giving you the parents that you have. And so think about it. Again, millions of people in the world, and yet it was your mom and your dad that God saw good to be for you. And now we know as Christians, right? Everyone in this room, again, we're giving context to who Paul is writing to. He's writing to the Ephesian church. And so they already were putting their faith in God, and they understood that God was the ultimate authority that they were to fall under. They knew that whatever God spoke, they were to obey. But in the same way, while we were growing up, God understands that we need someone else to be over us while we are growing up, while we are learning how to navigate life. Kids, God put your parents as an authority for you in your life. They have been given the specific task and responsibility of raising you, of leading you, guiding you, discipling you, caring for you, protecting you. They were given that charge by God. And this is a good thing because, and I'm going to talk to the teenagers here for just a second. As teens, we sometimes think that we know everything there is to know already. We hit 16, and for some reason, that's like the peak of knowledge. And we don't need anyone to tell us what to do anymore. We've got it figured out. I know what I'm doing. Mom, Dad, I don't need to listen to you. But in truth, you don't know yet, and you are not equipped enough yet to handle the full responsibility of making all of the decisions on your own. You still need training. And that is why God gave you parents, because their job is to train you up in the way that you should go. not just to be a good kid, not just to be a smart kid, but they have been given a task to raise you according to the instruction and discipline of the Lord. And so as someone who is young and someone who is growing up, learning how to trust God, learning how to obey God, the first way that God says, hey, you can live it out this way, you can show me and prove your faith in this way as a kid, obeying your parents. Because as you learn to obey and honor the authority that's over you in the household, as Pastor Aaron shared, when we're dedicating these kids, you are training yourself to learn how to say yes to the Lord. Every time you decide to put your desires down and elevate your parents and do what they are asking you to do, you are conditioning yourself so that when you become an adult, it is that much easier for you to die to self and say, yes, Lord, whatever that looks like. You are being trained as a kid to obey the Lord as we honor your parents. And so 3 quick, practical ways. Kids, are you still with me? I can't tell. We're going to just hope and pray that's a yes and amen. 3 things that you can do to help yourself establish honor with your parents. The first is honor with your eyes. Proverbs 30:17 says that the eye that mocks a father and despises the mother instructions will be plucked out by the ravens of the valley and eaten by vultures. That is a little graphic, a little harsh. I get it. But think about it this way. And I was telling my mom this example, and she laughed because this was me as a kid. How many of you have ever been with your friends and your mom or dad just says something really embarrassing, or they do something really lame, right? And you look at your friends and then you look at your mom and then you just kind of roll your eyes. In that small moment, you are mocking your parents. And it's something that we think is so small, and God doesn't see or God doesn't care about that, but in that moment, you are dishonoring them. And so the first way that if you're wanting to grow in the way that you honor your parents, being trained to honor the Lord, give them your attention. When they're talking to you, fix your eyes on them. Put the screen down. Take the headphones out. It means more to them, and it pleases God more than you will ever understand. When you give them the attention that they deserve because of the authority and the role that they have in your life. So honoring them with your eyes. The second is honoring with your words. Again, so simple, but how many times, guilty kid, we can say the right words, but we mean them in a way that is completely off. Sure, Mom. Whatever you say, Dad. Right? We say the right things, but the attitude of our heart is so off. We are dishonoring our parents. And so a way to honor them, again, in this, is by giving them the respect that they deserve, even when it's hard. I know that on any given day, we have frustrations, we have angers, we have hurt, right? And it makes it hard to respond to things in a God-pleasing way. But again, context, Paul is writing to the Christian families here, even the young kids. You are never too young to ask the Holy Spirit for help. You can say, Jesus, I need help, to be kind to my mom when I'm having a really bad day. I need help to respond with love when I'm really mad. You can ask the Lord to help you to honor with your words. And finally, honoring with your heart, Proverbs 30:24-26. I won't read this entire thing, but it's a father pleading to his son about the joys of holding on to the wisdom that he teaches. But just this last line here, oh, my son, give me your heart. You can hear the pleading from the dad in this role. Give me your heart, son. And that's the third way that you can honor your parents, is give them your heart. Because one of the ways, and again, I'm speaking to teenagers more so here, that we can dishonor our parents that does the most damage is by allowing a wall to be created between us and them and distancing ourselves from them. Think about when you had a really rough day at school, or, parents, I don't know, you had a rough day at work, and you get home and your parents can see that something is clearly wrong. And she asks you, hey, honey, what's going on? Are you okay? You have 2 options in that moment. You can either be honest and honor them and open up, or you lie and you say that nothing's wrong, which is dishonoring. A way to honor your parents is to open up, let them know your fears, let them know what you're struggling with, right? Because they are there to help you. That's their God-given role, is to train you up, to walk you through the stages of life. The enemy wants to do whatever he can to break that relationship. Because if he can break the relationship between kids and parents, it's going to cause division. And where division is, there's going to be mistrust, there's going to be disunity, and before you know it, there will be chaos in your home. And we don't want that. God can't use that in the moment, right? We need to make sure that there is a unity there. Kids, you honor your parents by opening up and giving them your heart. And Paul says that this is the first commandment with a blessing. There is something on the other side of honoring your parents. There is a certain peace and security and fulfillment that you won't be able to find anywhere else other than a good relationship with your family. And those of you who have maybe grown up and been able to witness to yourself can speak to that. There is a blessing that comes from a strong family unit. And so I'm going to try to really speed this up just for the sake of time. But this idea of that it may go well with you and you would live long in the land, right? That final part of Paul's verse here does not mean that every single person who obeys every rule that the parent ever gives is going to live to the age of 99 and not have any issues in life. That's not what he's saying here. But think about the characters that I mentioned from the beginning: Nemo, Ariel, Simba, right? Think of all the fear that they wouldn't have had to deal with. Think of all the heartache that they wouldn't have had to go through if they had just listened to the instruction. I know for myself, if I had listened to my parents about certain things and not tried to do my own thing, I would have been spared a lot of heartache. And I'm sure some of you in here could say the same thing. There is a blessing in honoring your parents that leads to good fruit in your life later on. And you just have to trust that maybe they know what they're talking about. So recapping here, no matter how young you are, God gives you a way to prove your faith. He gives you a way to live it out, and that is by honoring and obeying your parents. And as you honor and obey, you're being trained in a way that makes it so much easier to say yes to the Lord as an adult. And if you know how to say yes to the Lord as an adult, he will lead you to the way that is real life. But if you don't learn how to obey and you train yourself to ignore, you are going to see the fruit of that later on, because you're not going to listen to authority. You're not going to be able to come under anyone, and it's not going to lead you to a life that is well. Does that make sense? Are we doing okay? All right, and so parents, I'm going to try to wrap up with you real quick. We good? I kind of beat down your kids for a little bit. We're going to build them up, but I'm going to talk to you. Just real quick, this verse 4, I didn't read it right away because I wanted to make sure that these were separated. But verse 4, Paul says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way that you treat them. Rather, bring them up with discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord." Now, I am not a parent, so I do not have much of a leg to stand on. But I've read my Bible, and I see what society is putting out there for you. And there are so many voices telling you how to raise your kids. Gentle parenting, strict discipline parenting, anything and everything in between. I can't say which one is right in those regards, but what I can say is that your instruction, whichever you choose, is going to shape who your children become, and it's going to shape your relationship with them, both now and for the future. And the parents, again, fathers that Paul is specifically talking to here, in that culture, they had the ultimate authority over their kids. There was no teachers to deal with. There was no principals or youth pastors or kids. They were the ultimate say in their kids' lives. They dictated their future. They taught them whatever trades they were going into. They were the main ones that were teaching them the word. They were the ones in charge. And very easily, many people could begin to abuse that and lord that over them. But Paul is saying, hey, here, I want you to remember that children are a gift. They are a stewardship from the Lord. And most parents, you can raise your kids to be good, moral people. But that is not what matters, and that is not what Paul is talking about here. A Christian parent, when you read this verse, this is great too. The instruction that matters is from the Lord. It's not your wisdom that's going to teach you how to parent your kids well. It's not your insight, your intelligence, your experience. Those are all helpful, but what matters is the instruction and the wisdom and the discipline from the Lord. This means that as parents, again, as we've talked about already, your example matters. What your kids see you do will speak more than any other words that you say. How much of a priority is Jesus in your home? Is Sunday morning a checklist thing that may or may not get checked off, or is it an anticipation that you are planning for on Saturday? Your rhythm of life proves or disproves the reality of God. Are your kids seeing you get on your knees before the Lord and pray? Are your kids seeing you surrounding your family in times of worship or the presence of God? Are they seeing you saying, hey, let's go serve together. Let's go read the Bible together. Let's talk about Jesus. Hey, son, what are you learning about Jesus? If you are not having these discussions, that is all going to shape what your kids think that you think about the Lord. Is that making sense? And so if you have only let your faith affect you and you're not pouring into your kids in any way, shape, or form, you are missing the role that God has put you in place for. You are missing the goal that is the real thing in mind. How are your kids seeing you obey the Lord? How are they seeing you honor the Lord? Because they will follow your example. What you are doing is what is teaching them. How easy are you making it to love Jesus in the good times and the bad times? What does it look like for you? What are your reactions? And what are they echoing about Jesus? Your goal as a parent is more than just providing financially. It is more than making sure your kids are well-rounded. Your goal as a parent, according to the word, again, I don't have much to stand on here, but your goal is to point your kids to Jesus. That is the ultimate thing. They can know how to manage a checkbook. They can know how to be kind to people in a room, but if they don't know that Jesus is the only way that they have access to a relationship with their Heavenly Father, then that does not mean anything. They need to know how to love the Lord, how to seek His presence, and you guys, as parents, were the main example of that. You were meant to be what's the word I'm looking for? Not priority. You're the main one, primary, thank you. You're the primary source of that instruction. God put you as their parent for that specific purpose. And I'll close with this. Nikki, if you want to come to the piano. We're going to end a little bit differently, but I was thinking about it this weekend, and it could be a little off base, but I was thinking about the 400 years of silence, right, between what we know as the Old Testament and the New Testament. No words from God, nothing going on except for what they already had. 400 years. Our nation isn't even 400 years old yet. And think of how we started and where we're at now. And so what was it that kept this faith heritage for 400 years, nothing new happening from God? What was it that carried them through? The only thing that I could think of was that it was parents that took their roles seriously. And they took their responsibility seriously, that they were going to be the ones, if nothing else. There wasn't teachers to depend on. There wasn't pastors to really depend on. It was up to them to follow the commands that they were given in Exodus, in Deuteronomy, in the Psalms, that we're going to be the ones that tell our kids of the wondrous acts of what the Lord has done. That when our kids start asking these questions and what does it mean, we're going to be the ones that tell them about who our God is. And through that, we're going to teach them how to follow and live in a way that pleases Him. We're going to teach them what it looks like to honor the Lord. We're going to model that for ourselves so that when we're gone, they can carry forward. Does that make sense? And so my encouragement, I hope this isn't like really harsh on anybody, because I think we have awesome families in here. So my encouragement to you is that what you are doing matters more than you realize. You may feel like you're failing as a parent or you're not doing the greatest as a kid in certain areas, but if you are following the Lord and pursuing Him as a family with everything you have, then you're doing well. And there's blessing on the other side of that. And so the prayer team will come. I'm just going to do two kind of calls real quick. The first, backing up a little bit, if you are in here and say, hey, before I can even ask Jesus to help me when it comes to honoring the people in my family, I need to go back and really value him for myself and give my life to the Lord, because I have not been living in a way that is honoring and pleasing to him. If that's you, every head bowed, every eye closed, could you just raise your hand? We want to pray with you. If that is the case, if you say, I just need to rededicate myself first before I start asking for help in these other areas, we want to pray with you. I know this is a little rushed ending, but bear with me. But if not, there's going to be two responses, I guess you could say. If you are in here and you need prayer for a specific person, specific situation going on in your family, maybe you're grown now and one of your kids isn't living for the Lord and you are just believing that one day they will come back, we want to stand with you and pray that we will see that happen. If you're someone in here that says, I have a horrible relationship with my parents and I really just need breakthrough and healing in that, we want to pray with you. But if I could be so bold, one last time before you chase me out, I want to charge the parents in here with structuring this altar time, this response time. I want you to take it upon yourselves, however you feel led, to be the ones to pray with your kids. That as a family, we're going to take a few minutes to recenter ourselves, to recommit to the purpose that God has for us, to ask ourselves how we can honor Jesus better and how we can honor each other better. And so we're just going to have some low music, and I want you to just take a few minutes and pray. But if you need specific prayer, please come up to the front. We'll go now.